Are you looking to move to the Atlanta area and you want to know the good and the bad about living here? Well, I got you covered there. I'm going to give you my take on the pros and cons of living here in the Atlanta area. So let's get after it right now. Let's talk all about living in Atlanta. Hey everyone, my name is Molly Sleznick and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I would love if you would hit that like and subscribe button so you can follow along, and hit that bell so you can be one of the first to be notified when I do post a new video. But if you're looking to move to the Atlanta area, next week or next year, you have some questions, give me a text, send me an email, give me a call, whatever you want to do. I would love to hear from you and see how I can help you out. But let's get into it. I want to talk about all the pluses and minuses of living here in the Atlanta area. To give you some context, I moved to the Atlanta area 10 years not knowing anything about Atlanta, but here's what I've discovered while living here. And let's talk about the pros first, because everyone wants to talk about the positive stuff, right? So the pros. So the first thing that I would have to say is Atlanta is a very beautiful city. I moved from Houston, which was kind of a concrete jungle. I mean, Houston has some parks and that kind of thing, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it was just cement and driving and commuting. And Atlanta has tons of parks, tons of trees and hills. And I think all of that together makes up a really, really beautiful city. I can't get over, in the spring and the fall, it is so beautiful here. You see the trees budding, the pollen's probably another thing that should be on my cons list. That's the one downside of here, is that the trees create a lot of pollen, but besides that, they are beautiful. And yeah, Atlanta, we do have some parts of the city where it is more of a concrete jungle. You get into Buckhead or Midtown, yeah, you're gonna have, the parking lots and that kind of thing. But once you go just a couple miles away, you hit a lot of green space. Like I said, there's tons of parks everywhere, tons of parks, trails, hiking. And yeah, it's just a very beautiful city. Another pro for Atlanta is that Atlanta's a very diverse city. So I grew up in a very, very small town in Kansas with a population of 1,100. Okay, I'm a small town girl. We had zero diversity. Okay, and then I moved to one of the biggest cities in the US, which was Houston, and Houston has a ton of diversity. Atlanta has a lot of great diversity as well. And in fact, roughly the averages for the makeup is 50% is African American, 40% is white, and then we've got roughly 4% Hispanic and 4% Asian. So a lot of different cultures melting together. I'm happy to expose my kids to different cultures than our own. So yeah, Atlanta's a very diverse city. Another pro about living here in the Atlanta area is that we are home to a very major airport. So Delta is headquartered here. In fact, when I moved from Houston, I was a loyal United fan because United was headquartered in Houston. But here in Atlanta, you just got to switch to Delta, okay? That's all there is to it. But what I love about having a major airport is that you can virtually fly anywhere nonstop. And I didn't really care about this until you have small kids. Let me tell you, you do not want to be making multiple stops to get to your destination with kids and carrying all that stuff, and you don't want to deal with that. So that's what I love about Atlanta, is you get spoiled with those nonstop flights. And yeah, I can't remember the last time I've actually had to make a connecting flight. Now, the one downside is that we only have one major airport. I know there's other cities like Dallas and Houston that have two airports, one in the north, one in the south. Atlanta doesn't have that. It's the Atlanta Jackson Hartsfield Airport is south of town. So for those of you that live kind of in the northern burbs like Alpharetta, Roswell, Marietta, it's still going to take you some time to get down to that airport. You got to go through traffic and all that kind of thing. But if you live in town, it's pretty quick to get over to the airport, actually. So, but I got to say, having nonstop flights anywhere in the US, it's great. And we have a lot of international flights too. So yeah, the Atlanta airport is definitely a pro. While we're on the topic of transportation, I should mention another pro, which is that Atlanta is very drivable to not only the beach, but also the mountains. And Atlanta also has a lot of different lakes around the city. And they're all drivable. So you know, me growing up in Kansas, we just didn't drive to the beach. That was like a 2-day event. And back then the speed limit was probably like 50 miles an hour. So it would have taken us forever to get to the beach. But here in Atlanta, a lot of people go to Hilton Head, or a big popular one is 30A along the Panhandle in Florida. That's a very popular destination. I personally love going to 30A, hitting up all those beaches. They are beautiful, and it's gotten very, very popular. But you can drive there, I'd say like 5.5 hours if you don't have kids. If you have kids, it's probably going to take you more like 6.5 to 7. You know, you got to do the stops and lunch breaks and that kind of thing. But Hilton Head's more like 4.5 hours. So you can definitely head to the beach, and it's not going to be, you know, a whole 2-day event to get there. So I love that. And then if you want the mountains, well, we have the Georgia mountains are within an 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on where you go and where you live. But a couple popular areas for the mountains is like the Blue Ridge Mountains. You got LJ, Dahlonega, the Highlands is in North Carolina, but all of those you can get, again, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And yeah, Atlanta has a lot of great lakes nearby that are, you know, within an hour, 1.5 hour drive. We've got Lake Lanier, which is very, very popular, Lake Oconee, Lake Hartwell, Lake Sinclair. Am I missing one? Lake Allatoona, that's another one. So lots of options for lakes if you're wanting to live the lake life. And yeah, there's a lot of people that have lake homes, mountain homes, or beach homes. They're all very accessible from the Atlanta area. Another pro for Atlanta is the weather. So I grew up in Kansas, where I got the full extremes of the heat in the summer and the really frigid winters, blizzards, snow, ice, that kind of thing. You know, I think it all depends on your perspective of where you're coming from. So, you know, if you're coming from California, where it's sunny 364 days out of the year, then yeah, this might be a little bit of a shock, because we do get some rain. We do, you know, have stretches where it's cloudy. But I'd say overall, each season is a nice season. It's not too long overdue before we move to the next season, and it doesn't get too cold. And it gets hot, but I came from Houston, where it was hot, you know, hot and humid 8 months out of the year. Here in Atlanta, it's hot and humid maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year. You know, and if you're coming from the north, you're gonna think our winters are wonderful, because, you know, the winters are like, we get down to the 30s, maybe the 20s. I think there's a couple of years, I remember we got down to the single digits. And yeah, when we get snow, we don't really know how to handle that. I'm saving that for another con, so stay tuned for that. But overall, we have really great seasons. You know, Atlanta is called Hotlanta because of its summer heat, which, yeah, it gets hot, it gets humid, but if you compare it to like a Miami or a Houston or like a Baton Rouge or a New Orleans, I don't know if we're that much more humid than those areas. So the spring and the fall seasons are beautiful here, and they last a good stretch of time. It's not just spring came for 1 week and then it's gone. Now, you know, like I said, we get rain, we get thunderstorms, occasionally a tornado warning. I think I went into our basement one time in the last 10 years for a tornado warning. We do get some hurricane remnants from storms that come up from the Gulf. And when those do hit Atlanta, you know, the real concern is just the strong winds, because we do have so many trees in the city. Those hurricane winds blow down trees and then it knocks down power lines, so people lose power, which is a pain. But you know, generally it's not destroying tons of houses, it's just down power lines, or, you know, unfortunately sometimes trees do fall on roofs, but that's, you know, that's not like an extreme hurricane where you see on the coast where it's just catastrophic damage or anything like that. And then yeah, it does snow every once in a while, but it's usually here one day and then it's melted by the next day, or sometimes it's just the day of. So I think I've seen it snow here 4 times since I've lived here in the last 10 years. So yeah, not a ton of snow. And yeah, I think the weather here is great. Again, I think it's all depending on where you're coming from, but for me, I think the weather is perfect. All right, another pro for Atlanta is the cost of living. So I think it really depends on your perspective, but when I looked up the cost of living for Atlanta compared to the national average, we were actually 1% below the national average. And, you have to compare Atlanta to other major big cities, like, cost of living from Atlanta versus a Dallas or a Houston. I'd say we're pretty comparable, but if you're looking at, like a New York, a Boston, Chicago, or California, then we look way cheaper than those areas. And if you're coming from the Midwest, then you're gonna think Atlanta looks more expensive. So again, it all depends on where you're coming from. But and it's funny, when you talk to people that have lived in Atlanta their whole life or for 20 plus years, they will say, oh, Atlanta is getting so expensive to live in. But yeah, prices are going up in Atlanta as more people are moving here. But I think that's comparable to any other big city. Prices are going up in other big cities as well. So yeah, I think the cost of living here is not too bad. All right, so I've talked about all the fun stuff Atlanta. Now it's time to get into the cons of living here in the Atlanta area. And I have to start with this one. Number one con of Atlanta is the traffic. I think anyone you talk to is going to complain about the traffic here. Now, Atlanta just grew very, very fast after like the Olympics in '96. And, I don't think there was time to really design our city to accommodate all the influx of people that moved here. And so, yeah, the highway systems, they're just not great. And, when you look on a map, I remember some people that have been, looking to move to Atlanta and they're like, let's go see some homes over in Tucker and then in Canton and Marietta. And they think, you look on the map and it doesn't look like it's that far, but it's really far. Plus the traffic, everything gets congested. And even if you're commuting in town and you just have like a 1 to 2 mile stretch, sometimes it's just 1-lane roads and they get backed up. So those 1 or 2 miles, instead of taking, 5 minutes, it's taking you 30 minutes, just depending on the time of day. So yeah, the traffic is pretty bad, but I talk to people that move here from LA and they're like, oh, traffic's not so bad compared to LA. So again, it all depends on where you're coming from, but yeah, the traffic, it's pretty bad. I have to mention it is the crime. We have seen an uptick in our crime rates lately in the last couple of years. I think though that that's pretty similar to a lot of other cities and what they're experiencing as well, just with the pandemic and a lot of the political stuff that's going on. So yeah, we've had an uptick in crime. Now, am I going outside every day fearing for my life? No. But you do have to be aware of your surroundings. And when you look at Atlanta, as the big picture of Atlanta and through the years now, Atlanta in the 80s and 90s was not, at least in town, in the city, it was not a place to be. We did have very high crime. In fact, a lot of people fled to the burbs, and now we're seeing the reverse happen. A lot of people are moving from the burbs into the city. And yeah, in fact, from 2009 to 2016, we saw an overall crime decline of 27%. So that's very encouraging news. And I even looked at a couple different websites before shooting this video to see, like, is Atlanta in the top 10, of most dangerous cities? And we didn't hit the top 10 for 2019, 2020. So yeah, I don't think, Atlanta's like the worst off city for crime. Just like any other crime or city, you do have to be aware of your surroundings and just be cognizant that you are in a city and there is stuff that's going to be happening, unfortunately. But yeah, it's one topic I felt like I needed to throw in there to not be dismissive of it. Okay, another con for living here in the Atlanta area, I kind of touched on it a little bit talking about the weather, but when we get bad weather, Atlanta does not know how to handle it, okay? Just Google Snowpocalypse 2014, or it's called Snow Jam, Snowmageddon. There was a lot of different nicknames going on, but back in January 2014, if you didn't see the national news, I mean, so embarrassing, but we got like this little winter storm that came in around lunchtime. So then everyone was trying to get home at the same time, and the road started to freeze just very, very quickly, and everyone got stuck. So we had stranded cars. People had to walk 10 miles to get home. People were stuck in a traffic line for 24 hours. And it was actually kind of cool to see the city come together. People started putting, making sandwiches at home and walking and giving them to people stuck in their cars and that kind of thing. But yeah, we just did not prepare well for that storm. And then, anytime we have a threat of some kind of snow, I feel like the city just cancels everything. And it's like, kids stay home. We're not dealing with this. Yeah, we're just not very well equipped to handle snow and ice. And it's very embarrassing for me coming from Kansas. And for any of you northerners up there that get like, a couple feet of snow, you're laughing at us for our like tiny, tiny bit of ice and snow that we get. But yeah, Atlanta's just not well prepared for snow and ice. Another con for Atlanta, you guys, we have this thing called cockroaches. They are disgusting, okay? Disgusting. And I thought I was used to bugs with growing up with crickets and grasshoppers, but these cockroaches are humongous and they're fast too. So I'll spot one in my house and I will try to hit it with a shoe. Those suckers, they crawl across the floor so fast and they can squeeze into the tiniest little crack. Even though they look like huge bugs, they somehow magically shrink into these tiny little cracks. And so if you're moving to Atlanta, don't be alarmed if you see a cockroach or two. It's pretty normal. I would suggest getting your house sprayed for, having an quarterly pest spray, or you could do it yourself just to keep the bugs at bay. But yeah, we have some bugs here. It's not great. We also have termites. I mean, we have tons and tons of trees, and what do termites like? Wood. So that's another thing I kind of had to get used to, was like, I needed to get a termite bond and protect my house from termites and that kind of thing. But yeah, the cockroaches, you guys, they're gross. And I kind of leave my husband to the job of killing a cockroach if I can help it. Another con with Atlanta is that we do not have a great public transportation system. Yeah, we have city buses and we have our version of a subway system called the MARTA, but it is not anything close to, what Chicago, Washington, D.C., Boston, New York have. It's not close to that. I'll put a map up here so you can see just exactly where our lines go, but you'll see it makes a big T through our city. And unless you are, wanting to get to a spot that's just right off the line, it's not very convenient for a lot of people. A lot of people that are coming from the burbs to the city, you either have to, drive to a station and park your car, then ride the station into town, and then hopefully that, you work close to one of those station points. Otherwise, you're going to have to get an Uber to get you to the rest of your destination or wait for a city bus. So it's just not perfect, and most people have a car. You're going to probably need a car if you move to the Atlanta area. I think the only place maybe you wouldn't need a car is that, if you lived and worked in Midtown, you could probably get away with not having a car, but yeah, you're going to need a car here in the Atlanta area. And along that note, I will say, if you liked riding your bike, Atlanta doesn't have the best bike lanes. We have some. I think Atlanta's trying, but we do not have a good full system of bike lanes. They have made sections dedicated for bike lanes, but it's only, it's very scattered and they're choppy. It's like, it'll go for a certain stretch and then it just stops. So it's not perfect. So I'm not a big outdoor biker, so I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing most people would say that our bike system is not perfect. But yeah, not the greatest transportation here in the Atlanta area. Another con here in the Atlanta area is the pollen. Okay, we have such beautiful trees, but when they start blooming in the springtime, holy cow, the pollen is out of control, okay? It coats the streets, your porch, your car. If you have pretty white cushions on your patio furniture, put those away during the pollen season. Otherwise, they're going to get destroyed. It's just gross. It's nasty. If you've got allergies, I get my allergies start picking up during the pollen season. So just make sure you've got all of your allergy medicine in stock. It usually lasts about a month. And then after that, then it's pretty Atlanta again. But until then, I would suggest, especially if you don't have a garage, buying one of those monthly car wash passes so you can run your car through that car wash as many times as you need. That's what I do. Yeah, the pollen was something I had never experienced quite to this extreme, but like I said, once it's done, it's a really pretty Atlanta springtime. So those are my pros and cons of living here in the Atlanta area. I'm going to throw one more as a bonus for you. It's more fun, but the pro is that Atlanta has a lot of pro sports teams, and Atlanta is a big Georgia Bulldog nation. And so the con is that a lot of our teams let us down every year. Oh my goodness. So, you know, if you're into football, we have the Atlanta Falcons, basketball, Atlanta Hawks. We've got soccer, the Atlanta United team. What am I missing? The baseball, Atlanta Braves. And then, you know, as I mentioned, the Georgia Bulldogs is big for college football. And yeah, the cons are that we have we've come so close. And it's almost kind of like a running joke here in Georgia that our Georgia teams always somehow mess it up. So I'm thinking about like the Super Bowl when we were playing the Patriots. Was that 2016? And we had like a 28-3 lead up to the third quarter, and the Patriots came back, won the Super Bowl in overtime. We should have won that. So that was pretty disappointing. And then the Georgia Bulldogs, they were in the finals, whatever you call that, the national championship. And they were playing Alabama, and we were up 13-0 at halftime. And then Alabama came back and scored a bunch of points. And then I think that one went into overtime, and we lost that one. And yeah, so we've had some bummers, but hey, the Braves won the World Series this year in 2021. So that was really, really exciting. And our soccer team won their championship in, 2018? So we've had some wins, but the ones when we lose really bad and disappointingly. So anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this pros and cons list of here in the Atlanta area. If you ever have questions, hit me up. You can give me a text, give me a call, send me an email. Love to be able to help answer any questions you have, or put those comments below. Love to hear from you. But until next time, you guys, I'll see you around the neighborhood.